Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today we are thinking about grace for ourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Let's be honest, we all need grace for ourselves, and this is something that we need to think about. So I have my special guest here, Alenka, who's going to help us think about this in another way so that we can keep on thinking. So, with that being said, thank you so much, Alenka, for coming onto my show. Let's go ahead and dive right in, ripping off that band-aid. When you hear the words grace for ourselves, what does that make you think about?
I think about everyone else usually. I don't think about what that means like in my own head and how I talk to myself. I feel like I think that's probably partially my upbringing. I think like God's grace more than I think of like because that was my I had a religious upbringing. But I don't think about how I think about it in my own head, if that makes sense. You
It
know what I
does
mean?
make sense.
Those are the associated words, if you will.
Yeah, that usually happens is because sometimes people are so accustomed to thinking of other people and not of themselves and learning how to serve first
Mhm.
versus learning how to love yourself or recognize yourself first. So that's a totally acceptable answer. I'll take it and accept it because come on, let's be honest, you are not the only one that has had that type of upbringing. So to reflect on yourself is kind of either one gets uncomfortable,
Mhm.
two is unfamiliar, and three you have to practice that, you know what I mean, to actually implement it for it to be a normal thing. So thank you for your honesty. So how did you come about just talking about grace for others then? Like why should others think about grace in general then?
Yeah, I mean, I started thinking about it. This was a few years ago. I went through really horrible burnout. And
Okay.
I had a friend every time I would be like, oh, I should do this or I should do that. I kept on telling myself that I should be doing whatever it was, right? I should have worked out,
XYZ.
should have done the laundry, I should have done the dishes. Like, take your pick. The list is long. Uh,
Yeah.
but I would have a friend catch me while I was going through this, and she said, "It's like stop saying should." Like,
Yeah.
and like and that to me is very associated with grace. Like when we
Mm.
think we should be doing something or someone else should be doing something, that's us
Mm.
not giving grace.
That's very true. Oh, that is a real thinker. That is interesting. I never really put it in that perspective, but it's true because we always say, oh, we should, but then, okay, why don't you have the grace for what you have now? Or why don't you have the grace to move forward and figure it out along the way, But we don't really tap into grace. So, because you have the biblical sense of grace, what does grace mean to you? What does that make you think about when you think of grace?
It's so funny because it was my childhood and it's not my current life now. But like if I think about back then, what that upbringing was, it was very there was no strings attached, there was no expectations, it was given freely, there was no tit for tat. Do you know what I mean? Like there was when it if I pull it out for, what now with my adult lens, if you will, translating what I heard as a child, that
Mm-hmm.
grace wasn't contingent on anything, right? It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't contingent on you doing something or being a certain person or, checking off the list of things you good enough. It was given freely. And I think we're so bad at doing that for ourselves. We're like, well, I'll love myself if I look a certain way, or I'll love myself if I make enough money, or I'll be okay
Yeah.
with myself if I do be a good enough, like partner or parent or whatever it is. And it's just like, if you heard someone else talking to you that way, would you be okay with that?
No. No. So now as an adult lens, how do you see it now? How do you implement it in your life?
It's hard. I will say it is really hard. I think it's easy to say, oh, yeah, I'm like, got this. No, I am trying every day. And it starts in the small things. It starts in the like, oh, I made a spelling mistake while trying to write that. Maybe I need to put if it's the work away or if it's like the text away and like let my brain relax or naps. I'm obsessed. Give me a minute nap. And even if you can't nap, like put a device away, put some like calming music on for a second and sit down on the couch or lie down for like 10 minutes. I swear,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be complicated. But for me, grace is not forcing myself and my body and my mind past the point that it's ready for today. And every day that
Mm.
looks really different.
Absolutely. I think that's a very great point right there. We have to consider that. And I think I didn't start tapping into my own grace until I had children. You know what I mean? Because my children literally pushed my boundaries. Like before kids, when I was single and no kids and just living my life, I tapped into grace by pausing. You know what I mean? But like you said, just taking a nap or just turning everything off and just breathing, you know what I mean? Or actually taking a nap. So now that I have kids, like I can't take a nap. I can't always have this alone time for myself to just unwind because I have my kids always on me. So it's interesting how you can tap into grace even when there's chaos around you. You know what I mean? And when you get to that point, it's just like it's a nice feeling because now it's just you start to look for other ways you can start tapping into grace. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Tapping into it in other areas because I don't realize how much I need grace in my everyday life until I start like veering away and just handling things my old ways. And I was just like, no, 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 come back, Mitzi, come back, back. We got the grace to handle this. So it's like I gave my moment to pause, have that grace check, and then go forward, ready to go full force. And I'm just so much better. And I never realized this capability before. You know what I mean? I never realized this was something that I can do for myself. So
Yeah.
it seems like you learned that as well for yourself. You understand the child perspective because I do too. I got that when I was a kid, but when you kind of grow up in your teens and life hits you in your early 20s, you feel like you lose grace and you embrace the world and the hardship of the world and everything like that. So, how long did it take from you from going from the hardship of the world to back into the grace?
I will say that it took a major life event.
Oh,
So,
okay.
like some people, they're good at learning from the people around them. They can be like, oh, that person made a mistake. What did they do to get there? Let me not do that. Yeah, I'm not very good at that when it comes to this, at least. Like,
Okay.
right, I can do that, like what's the right car to buy? I can walk you through my process there. But like this is so much harder. It took me going through like a really, really horrible burnout, the type of burnout
Mm.
where I couldn't feed myself. I could barely get out of bed. I used to be someone who would write like 50 plus emails a day, and I could barely pump out like two.
Wow.
So in the worst of it, and I like ground my teeth so bad, I went to the dentist for an emergency visit. I was in pain, and she's like, "Oh yeah, no, that's you just like you ground teeth to the point where there's less teeth basically, and that's why you're in pain." And I was like, I didn't know you could do that with stress, right?
Yeah.
Burnout is basically low grade stress for a really long time, and it builds up.
Yeah.
Um, and so I went through that, and for the first time in my life, was forced to quit my job, which I had been working since I was 16. Like I was the person who was in university with three jobs.
Yep, I know how that
Like
is.
that was me. But this was I was forced basically to stop and take a break and reevaluate my life, and that was the impetus, the trigger, whatever you want to call it, that then started my grace journey, if you will.
Yeah.
Because I think I could have, if that didn't happen, I would have continued forcing myself. It would have caught up eventually, but
I mean, I can see your story because I can see your story in so many people. It's so
yeah,
relatable. It's so relatable because so many people are going through that. And so many people in the older generations, Boomer and Gen X, they have felt it and they understand that burnout because
yeah,
they stick with loyalty goes over burnout. You know what I mean?
yeah,
That old school mentality is like, I don't care if I burn out. I don't care how much stress is on my body. I'll rest when I'm dead. I hate that saying, but I'll rest when I'm dead is a real saying that people still hold on
yeah,
to today. And it's just like it's all because of that loyalty. Oh, I'm grateful for to have a job or I'm grateful for the opportunity. So I'm gonna give my all to this company. And it's just like you can't give your all to this company. You can't give your all to companies anymore. You have to reserve yourself and
yeah.
preserve yourself by giving you this grace. Oh my goodness. So once you tapped into this grace, it sounds like you really changed your momentum because like why would you want to talk about this with other people? and come onto my show and come onto other people's shows and share this with the world. Why, Alinga? Why?
Why am I crazy enough to share the intimate details of my life publicly? Because exactly to your point, I saw this and I see this in so many different places in our lives where it's taboo to talk about whatever, pick your topic. There's certain things like
Yeah,
salaries, right? So who does it benefit? It doesn't benefit me or you. It benefits the people paying us because, there's
exactly.
no transparency, right? So like if we can talk
Exactly.
about these things like burnout in a very honest and open way, who is that benefiting? The people who are going through it, the people who start to see the sense of it. I don't want
Mm.
anyone to go through what I went through. It was awful. It's taken me 3 years to get to
Wow.
a good place, and it can take people up to 5 years. But think
Yeah.
about this. I was in that toxic job for 7 years, right? So like
Yeah.
3 years isn't all that bad if you jokingly take the it takes half the amount of time of the relationship like get over it, right? That silly
Yeah.
saying. Like think about that for burnout, right? Like it can take that long. We need to give ourselves kindness, right? Like we don't get
Exactly.
injuries quickly often, right? They usually a buildup over time of a weakness or something, and we take our time healing from it. We should do the same for our health. Our brain is an organ.
Exactly. I mean, people understand the logic when it comes to physical pain and physical health. Like, oh, okay, my knee's broken. Let me just wait for it to heal up for me to do activities that require a lot of my knee movement. We don't realize that with our heart. We don't realize that with our mind. We don't realize that with our just whole entire body. And it drives me crazy how sometimes um people just will talk about, oh, reserve the temple, preserve it, don't do this, don't do that, but then you burn out your body. You know what I mean? You don't even give your own body this grace to just do the right thing. So I'm curious, what is one of your biggest pet peeves? Or if you got a couple, you can share a couple. But what is it? I don't
Oh,
know
I
how,
got a
what are you?
list. One of my favorite is when you go to like a doctor or someone, they're like, "Oh, it's just stress," and they don't give you any tools to deal with it. I'm like, stress is not like to your point about Gen Xers. Like it was this like given that if someone worked a high stress job, especially men, they would get a heart attack in their 50s.
Yeah.
That's not just stress. Like that is like a very tangible impact of lifestyle over years, right?
Yeah,
We're like,
exactly.
oh, washing it away like it's not a big deal. It's a big deal.
Oh, yeah, it makes me so mad. That happened to me when I was pregnant. Like I had this pain in my wrist and my OBGYN, she was like, "Oh, I just carpal tunnel." And I was like, "Oh, okay, so what are we gonna do about it?" And she's just like, "Just buy a brace at the store and you'll be fine." And I was just like, "That's it?" And she's like, "Yeah, that's it, you'll be fine." And I was just like, "Oh, okay. Way to make me feel devalued. Way to make me feel unworthy. Make me feel like this is nothing." And I
Yeah.
feel like that is something that happens all the time. So I absolutely understand. That is a really big pet peeve of mine too. Like, "Ah, how dare you?"
Yes. Like if you don't have the tools to help me, just tell me that. I'll go somewhere else.
Yeah, or she could have told me go to your primary. You know what I mean? That the other
Go
doctor
see a
could have
physical
said something.
therapist. I don't
Yeah,
know.
something. Goodness gracious. I swear people are ridiculous. So what is a superpower? If you could have a superpower, what would be the superpower you would have?
What would be my superpower if I could
Yeah.
pick one? Oh, I'm really bad at picking like one of anything, like a favorite food.
You
Maybe
could do
let's see.
two. It's okay. I'll let it slide.
Like, what is a superpower? Um, to if I could like give people a sense of calm,
A sense of
like
calm.
sense of calm, because when we're in any sort of stressed state, that's when we make bad decisions, when we're not connected to each other, when we like, when all of the like squabbles on the internet happen, it's because we're stressed and we're feeling like, a sense of calm and a sense of belonging. I think those are two things.
Yeah.
Because I think like without that, we lose a lot of our humanity and we're not built to be bots as much as we try to be.
That's true. And then we get stuck, you know what I mean? We get stuck in a moment of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the reason why some people don't mature. You could be 80 years old and still be at the age of 17 because you haven't matured, you haven't grown, you haven't let go of that trauma that affected you at such an age that is like you're stuck. I
Yeah.
mean, we see it all the time to have that sense of calm. That's a beautiful. Would it be like a wand? Like, boop, there you go.
I want it to be like a bubble around me. So within, I don't know, like 200 feet, that's always the case. That
Oh,
would be
okay. So you
amazing.
just radiate calmness. So anybody who comes
Yeah.
into your zone would be like automatically calm. Like, where's Alinka? I need to get calm. Like,
I mean, that being said, that sounds a
We're
little
gonna
cultish, and that's not what I wanted. But
That's a possibility that could happen. They're gonna come find you. You know, like the movie Trolls and how the those ogres were they couldn't find happy, so they ate the trolls because they thought they brought them happiness. That's how it would be for you. The people would try to take advantage of you because you bring calm. I don't know. I think you're gonna have to choose another superpower,
I
just a
know it's not a
backup
good one.
superpower. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I liked it in the beginning, but let's be honest, if you add the other scenarios of the possibilities, it starts to turn back at you like, ugh. I had this guy who came on my show and I asked him this question and he said I would want every woman to fall in love with me and I was like that's a curse. Why would you want that? Every woman to fall in love with you? Every woman, do you know how many women are out there? Every woman? Like no, you don't want that.
No, have you
No,
ever heard of the
no.
Pied Piper? Like, this is not a scenario. You
Yeah, yeah, it was so funny. So, I guess what is your medicine? Like how do you calm yourself down with the life that is, and I know we've been speaking of grace, but grace is there, but what is your medicine? Like, how do you zen and get back to yourself and centered?
I mean, taking a deep breath can be a start, but the first thing I thought of as soon as you said that is really good food. Like food that makes you stop what you're doing and actually pay attention and enjoy it, like that.
Yes, I love that answer because you know what I was thinking? Like, if somebody were ever to ask me, what would you not be able to live without? My first thought was food because I'm one of those people that get hangry. It's a real thing. Like, I literally get angry and I can feel my emotions build up where I'm like, I need to eat. Like, I need something before I snap because you could feel it, but man, when you eat that real delicious food, you stop everything what you're doing nothing and then you can taste the flavors. Oh my I like flavor. You know what I mean? I'm not
Mhm,
much of a person that likes spice. Like I'm not into spicy food.
mhm.
I'm into real food with real flavors. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you can have real flavor with food, so do you
Yeah.
cook or are you one to just buy?
I am a connoisseur of friends who are excellent cooks,
You,
which
you said a very fancy word to me no. Is that what
no,
it
I
means?
mean, like, I will cook here and there, but I'm also really like, I'll source, like, I know the best place to find certain things. And it's not to say that I can't cook. I just don't, people have joy in cooking. Like, they love the process of it. I love the end result. And so I'll find ways. I don't buy out too much because it's cheap for that immigrant mentality and all, but like, but I find ways to like, make really delicious meals really quickly and easily.
Oh, okay. I got you. I got
Yeah.
you. I got you. So, out of this whole world, who would you say is your role model?
Oh my gosh. There's too many people. And I feel like every day I discover a new person that I'm like, oh, you're cool.
But
Um,
this isn't that, yeah, it's not you're
yeah,
cool. It's role model, not you're cool. If I mean your cool list is probably really long. You know what I mean? But your
sure.
role model list, how long is that?
Long.
Oh, I love you, Alenka. This is
Um,
awesome.
There's so many. I mean, there's one person every time I see their name pop up, I'm like, I have to like watch or listen to everything that he says. His name is Simon Sinek. He wrote the book Start With Why. He has a couple of TED Talks. And recently I saw an interview with him and Trevor Noah where they talk about friendship and how that it's so core to being a human and how when we have close friendships and what that means and what that does to us, how we and what that does to like the impact of the world when you feel like you belong and you have a community. Um, I've been thinking about it all week.
That's good though, because then you marinate it and then you reflect on it and then you realize, okay, how can I how can I impact how can I add this into my own life to
Mhm.
add this value so that I can create this community, create this friendship that I really want within myself and with others. So
Yeah.
that's a great thing to think about during the week and just marinate on. And thank you for sharing that with us. So I guess to get back on point, what are some ways for people can just start reflecting on how they can give grace to others?
Yeah, I mean, giving grace to others, I think I find it's hardest to give grace to myself over giving grace to others. So that's just something I'm working through. But grace to others, I think, is to conclusions about why someone is acting a certain way or said a certain thing or that it's a reflection of what they think of you. Because most of the time, it's a
Um,
reflection of themselves and it has nothing to do with you. And that is freeing to be like, oh,
yeah.
that person cut me off in traffic. It's not because they had anything to do with me. It's just like they're having a bad day and they're, going to get stuck at the next red light beside me and I get to laugh. You know what I mean? Like it's not, it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with them. Or if someone's snappy at you in a, grocery store line or whatever, like it's their bad day. It's not a reflection of you. So don't take that off.
There you go, right? I like that. I like that a lot because once you start doing that more for others, hopefully, I'm not saying all people because I know people who treat strangers better than themselves and their own family, but once you start reflecting on other people and giving them that grace, it allows you to also do it for themselves because you can ask that big question. If I can have compassion for other people and if I can have grace for other people, then why can't I have it for myself? And
Yeah.
you need to love yourself. You're with yourself 24/7. I mean, goodness, you cannot escape yourself. I tried and it doesn't work. You can numb yourself with all the drugs in the world and all the pharmaceuticals you could think of, but it doesn't work. You could numb yourself with anything ABC list you want to create, but it's not going to change the fact that you have to deal with yourself. So
Yeah.
it's just like, do you think gratitude comes into this?
I think it's huge. I think for me, so I went through this journey a few years ago and I'm so grateful for it. It was in my 20s, which I think is earlier than most go through, women at least I think that I've seen go through it a few decades later.
Yeah.
Um, and instead of looking at myself and being like, oh, I wish I had the flat stomach or the thighs that didn't touch or whatever, it's like, you know what? I am walking today. I am moving. Now, this goes from
Yeah.
a history of injuries. So you get to be very grateful for your body. But like, I recently went through more re-injuries, like really horrible ones. And was I in the shape I wanted to be? No. But was I able to walk again? Yes. And I started to give myself grace and appreciate and gratitude for the fact that I could walk.
Yeah.
And like, did it matter that my body wasn't in the perfect shape I wanted it to be? No, it mattered that I had like grown and moved forward and changed habits so that I wouldn't, make the same mistakes. And when we start to like look at ourselves in that lens, like how far have I come rather than where do I want to be?
Hmm.
And then
That's
continue like how can I continue on that journey? That is way more powerful than comparing ourselves to our teenage body that we're never getting back.
exactly. Exactly. I don't even want to even look there. But now like that's how it used to be my mindset. But now it's just like I look back and I could have grace. Like, yes, that was a part of me. That doesn't change me. That person's never left me because I'm now grown from that. And I think that is something that is very important. So do you think like comfort and comparison is the thief of joy when and gratitude when it comes to this?
Like if you're comfortable, then you don't have
Like
joy.
comfortable, like how sometimes you can be so comfortable in your bad habits, in your bad environment that you don't even realize that it's becoming toxic to yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would almost say complacent.
Yes,
Um,
that's the word. Thank you.
yeah, yeah, because I was like, I like comfortable clothes. That was where my
Oh,
brain.
I'm always in comfy clothes. Believe me, comfy is my go-to, but
Yeah, it's
you
got to
know
be
what I
comfy
mean.
and cute. That's like the
Yeah,
gold standard for me, you know?
exactly.
Yeah. uh, I think it's when, so for example, I love my a good mac and cheese, like obsessed with a good mac and cheese. Will I eat it every day? No. When I notice that I am doing it often, I'm like, okay, that's probably means I'm in a bad mood or I'm getting my period or something. Let me check in with that and see if there's something else going on that I'm searching for comfort. In this case, it's food. And if I continue it without trying to take steps to improve it, that's complacency. But if I'm like,
There you
oh,
go.
okay, cool, I'm recognizing it. I'm gonna sit in this for a minute because I don't feel great and this is making me happy. And like I'll get to it tomorrow and I'll make a change tomorrow. But like actively, work through that, not just continue to let it happen and compile and snowball. That
Yeah.
that's, like it can, because once we become the robotic, like we're just doing the same thing over, rinse and repeating, and we're not learning to literally smell the flowers. Like this morning, there was a whiff of gorgeous flowers as I was walking my dog, and I'm like, oh, this is nice, and I actually appreciate. Versus years ago, I would have never done that. And so, what are those little things that you can do to like improve, appreciate all of that? Because you got to the shit sometimes. Excuse my French, but like that's okay. We're humans. We have to feel. If we don't feel that, we take out our humanity.
Exactly. And I love the fact that you showed both both perspectives. You know what I mean? You show both perspectives. Like, yes, you have this self-awareness that yes, what is going on? There has to be something deeper. Oh, I'm looking for comfort. Okay, let's not do it in this form. Let's try another way. You know what I mean? To find this comfort that ultimately is what I'm looking for. And I wish more people had thought in that perspective because not a lot of people do. You know what I mean? Not a lot of people do. And I'm glad that we are talking about this to hopefully give somebody an opportunity to realize, to have that accountability, you just have to be self-aware. You have to be just
Yeah.
aware of what's going on within you to be able to know what's going on outside of you as well. That's a very good point. Goodness gracious. You had a lot of great points for us to think about, but the show is almost about to be wrapping up. So what can be some lasting words of wisdom that you can leave us off with?
Um, I was like, where do I want to start with this? I think it's okay to ask for help. It doesn't make you helpless. I think
There you
that
go.
that has been really hard for me to embrace. But asking for help doesn't make you helpless. And then I would say whatever you're working towards or working on, is that mission, is what you're working towards strong your fear of doing it? Um, because if it is, maybe that's not the right thing for you, but most of the times it isn't. And when we reframe it that way, that gives us the encouragement to move forward and take that next step.
Can you say that again? It kind of broke up in the middle. So like the phrase,
The whole phrase,
yeah.
the mission is stronger than your fear, or the other one.
Yeah, that no, that one. The
Yeah.
mission is stronger than your fear. See? There
Yeah.
you go. I like that. I like that a lot. Thank you so much, Alenka. I really enjoyed this time and just being able to talk life with you and talk about grace. It has been really a pleasure. You gave me a lot to think about where I'm gonna go be finish this conversation. I'm like, huh, now I gotta think about my grace differently because we all do. We all have to think about the grace that we give ourselves so much differently than what we actually think about because we probably don't think about it much often. So
Yeah.
with that
Yeah.
being said, if you guys want to know more about Alenka, go check her out. I have her photo with her website on mine, just right there, right under, and you can continue on thinking with all that she has to offer the world. So, with that being said,